The keys felt heavier in my hand than they should have. Maybe it was the weight of what they meant, or maybe it was just the nerves that still caught me off guard, even after weeks of moving in. I slid the key into the lock, turned it, and stepped into my house. The house I bought with my own money, in my own name, without telling a single soul in my family. The air still smelled faintly of fresh paint, mingling with the sweetness of the vanilla candle I'd left burning that morning. My heels clicked against the polished hardwood floors as I walked through the hallway, sunlight spilling in from the wide bay window. Everything here was mine. The staircase I'd dreamed of, the kitchen with its marble countertops, the quiet sanctuary of the upstairs bedroom. For once in my life, no one else had a claim. Or so I thought. My phone buzzed on the entryway table, the vibration echoing against the wood. I almost didn't check it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a text from my cousin Amanda. "Hey, did you know your parents promised that house to Emily and her family? They've been talking about moving in next month." I froze, the words blurring on the screen. Emily. My sister. Of course. My lips curled into a half smile, not from amusement, but from that bitter, familiar irony. After everything I had built, everything I had sacrificed, somehow my family still thought this house was mine to claim. And for the first time, I realized I'd have to tell them the truth. It all started years ago, back when I was 22 and still living in my parents' house, feeling like a permanent outsider in my own family. My sister Emily had always been the golden child, charming, flawless, everyone's favorite. And me? I was the quiet one, the overlooked one, the girl who got a polite nod when she tried to speak up. I remember the argument vividly. I had just graduated and was brimming with ideas for my own life, dreams of buying a place of my own, building something that belonged solely to me. But when I brought it up at the dinner table, my mother's lips tightened, my father's eyebrows rose. "Why would you even think about that?" my mother said, her voice sharp. "We already promised Emily a house when she gets married. You'll have plenty of time to figure out your own future later." Later. That word hit me like a slap. Later meant never in the context of my family. My throat tightened, my hands curled into fists under the table. I wanted to scream, to argue, to tell them I was done waiting for their approval, but I just sat there, silent, listening to the words that felt like chains wrapping around me. That night, I went to my room and opened the drawer where I kept a small, worn journal my grandmother had given me. She had always whispered, "Build your life, Hannah. Nobody can promise it to you but yourself." I traced the words on the yellowed paper and felt a flicker of hope. She believed in me even when everyone else didn't. By morning, the decision was made. I would no longer wait for permission, for approval, or for validation. I would carve my own path, even if it meant walking alone. I started working 2 jobs, saving every dollar, studying investment and property listings in secret. Every rejection, every dismissive comment from my parents became fuel. That journal, that quiet encouragement from my grandmother, became my talisman. I vowed then that one day I'd have a home of my own, completely mine. A place where no one else's promises could overshadow my hard work. And I would never let anyone, not even my family, make me feel invisible again. The first step was the hardest. I had left college with a degree in marketing but no connections, no capital, and no roadmap. Nights were long, filled with spreadsheets, online courses, and the hum of my laptop while the rest of the world slept. I took a part-time job at a small digital firm by day and freelanced by night, trading sleep for experience, trading comfort for independence. It was during one of those late-night sessions that I met Lauren, a seasoned real estate consultant with a sharp mind and a warm laugh. She saw potential in me that I didn't even recognize in myself yet. "You have an eye for opportunity," she told me once, handing me a worn leather notebook. "Don't let anyone tell you what you deserve. Build it. Claim it. Own it." Her mentorship became the lifeline I didn't know I needed. I learned to read markets, spot undervalued properties, negotiate like a seasoned professional, and most importantly, trust my instincts. There were nights I wanted to give up. The rejection emails, the small setbacks, the whispers of doubt that crept in after a long day. But each obstacle became a stepping stone. I reminded myself of my grandmother's words and the journal I had kept close all these years. This was my fight, and no one could fight it for me. The first property I purchased was modest, a small condo on the outskirts of the city. But it was mine. I signed the papers in silence, my hands trembling, a quiet victory echoing in my chest. From there, I scaled up, reinvesting profits, learning the rhythm of the market, and pushing myself harder than I had ever pushed anyone else. Through it all, I remained invisible to my family. Phone calls home were brief, emails vague. I posted pictures of casual coffee dates, weekend hikes, or my dog to Instagram, never hinting at the life I was building. I wanted no one to know, especially them. Pride was no longer a luxury, it was armor. And slowly, painstakingly, it worked. I landed my first big client, securing a deal that doubled my savings in a single month. Then another and another. Each success was quietly celebrated alone, each milestone a private triumph over the years of being dismissed. I moved into bigger spaces, acquired properties that felt like tiny kingdoms, and polished my professional skills until I was confident that no one, not even my parents, could underestimate me again. By the time I finally signed the papers for the house I live in today, I had built more than just a home. I had built proof that I could stand on my own, that my success did not need validation from anyone else, and that I could transform rejection into power. Holding the keys for the first time, I felt a rush of emotions, relief, pride, and a quiet, simmering satisfaction. This house wasn't just a place to live. It was a statement, and it was mine. It was a Saturday afternoon when the knock came. I was in the kitchen, carefully arranging a bouquet of fresh tulips on the marble island, when the sound echoed through the empty hallway. My heart skipped, but not with fear. This was anticipation, the thrill of finally confronting the past on my own terms. I opened the door to find my parents standing there, Emily beside them, all smiles and casual small talk that didn't reach their eyes. "Hannah, we thought we'd drop by and see the new place," my father said, his tone hesitant, as if testing the waters. I stepped aside, letting them enter. The moment they crossed the threshold, the silence hit. My parents froze near the doorway, Emily's gaze flicking from the sparkling hardwood floors to the sunlight spilling across the living room. The house was everything I had envisioned, elegant yet welcoming, polished yet personal. Expensive art adorned the walls, photographs of travels and accomplishments scattered thoughtfully on shelves, and the aroma of fresh tulips mingled with the faint scent of coffee brewing in the kitchen. Emily's mouth opened, then closed. "Wait, this is your house?" she whispered, voice caught somewhere between disbelief and panic. I smiled, calmly taking a seat at the island, folding my hands together. "Yes," I said, letting the single word hang in the air like a bell tolling the end of old assumptions. "I bought it months ago. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to make sure it was mine, completely, undeniably mine, before anyone could argue, promise, or interfere." My mother's face paled, and my father's hands twitched, as if the world had shifted under them. "But we promised, Emily," my mother began, only to be cut off by my voice, steady and firm.
"Exactly.
"You promised, Emily. And you did it without considering me, without asking me. But here I am. I worked, I saved, I sacrificed. And now, this house is mine." Emily's eyes glistened with something I couldn't quite name, guilt, surprise, maybe even admiration. She opened her mouth, but no words came. I let them absorb it, letting the tension stretch into long, suffocating seconds. Then I walked them through the house. The living room, with its sunlight and curated decor. The kitchen, where the countertops gleamed and the appliances hummed with promise. The upstairs bedroom, my personal sanctuary. Every step was a quiet confirmation. I had built this life in silence, away from their favoritism, their assumptions, and their outdated promises. By the time we reached the balcony, overlooking the city skyline, I could see it in their expressions: shock, shame, and a dawning realization that the girl they had dismissed was now the woman they could no longer overlook. My mother's hand hovered over her mouth, My father's jaw tightened, and Emily's shoulders slumped, the weight of entitlement finally crumbling. I leaned on the railing, letting the wind brush against my face. "This house isn't about revenge," I said softly, letting my voice carry. "It's about independence and about proving to myself that I matter. And now that I've done that, I want you to understand, before you can step into my life, you need to see the respect I deserve." And for the first time in years, I watched them truly see me, not as a child, not as the overlooked sister, but as a woman who had claimed her place in the world on her own terms. Standing on the balcony, watching the city shimmer beneath the late afternoon sun, I felt a sense of calm authority settle over me. The shock in their faces had faded into something heavier, a quiet acknowledgement that the rules had changed. For the first time, I had the upper hand, and I intended to wield it wisely. I turned to my family, my voice firm but measured. "I want to be clear about something," I began. "I can welcome all of you here, but not on the terms you've always assumed. Not until there's respect, honesty, and fairness. I've worked too hard and sacrificed too much to let old patterns continue." My mother shifted, uneasy. "Hannah, we didn't realize." I raised a hand. "Stop. Listen first. No interruptions." The air in the room tightened. I drew a slow breath. "If you want to be part of my life and this house, you need to meet some conditions. Conditions that ensure this isn't just about space, but about growth, accountability, and change." I started with Emily. "You must stop assuming that everything you want will be handed to you. You have your own life to build, your own goals to chase. I can support you, but I won't let entitlement replace effort." Then my parents. "You promised her a house without considering me. That pattern of favoritism ends now. You need to respect boundaries, listen without judgment, and treat every decision as a partnership, not a competition. And yes, that includes allowing me to live my life on my terms, even when it doesn't align with your expectations." I noticed their tense expressions, but I pressed on. "These conditions aren't punishment. They're an opportunity. You can choose growth over old habits, accountability over assumptions. If you meet them, we can rebuild relationships based on trust rather than obligation." I walked toward the living room, my steps deliberate. "I'm not closing the door on any of you, but I am closing the door on the past, the patterns that kept me invisible, dismissed, or second best. My life, my home, my work, they are mine. And if you want to be part of them, you will approach with respect and understanding." The room was silent. I could see the shift in their eyes, the dawning comprehension that this wasn't a negotiation. This was a boundary, a declaration. I wasn't angry, though I had every right to be. I was clear, and clarity carried more weight than any outburst ever could. Finally, I took a seat on the sofa, letting the silence stretch just long enough for them to feel the gravity of my words. "I care about all of you," I said softly, "but I care about myself too. And I won't compromise my worth or my peace to protect old traditions that never valued me. If you're willing to meet me here, we can start anew. If not, that's your choice. But my life moves forward, with or without approval." I glanced around the room, letting my gaze settle on the sunlight streaming through the windows. The air was heavy with reflection, but I felt light. For the first time, my power wasn't just about property. It was about voice, choice, and unshakable self-respect. Weeks passed after the confrontation, and I watched subtle changes ripple through my family. Emily started pursuing her own projects, enrolling in courses she had once dismissed as too hard, and for the first time, I saw pride in her eyes, pride not borrowed from favoritism, but earned through her own effort. My parents, too, softened in their approach. They began listening more, asking questions instead of giving orders, and even acknowledged the mistake of overlooking me for years. I didn't force it. I let them discover the value of change themselves. Real growth is voluntary, I reminded myself, just as my grandmother had taught me. The little leather-bound journal I had kept for years, now frayed at the edges, sat on my bedside table. It had witnessed every decision, every sacrifice, every late night that brought me here. I ran my fingers over the familiar words. Build your life, Hannah. Nobody can promise it to you but yourself. That phrase had guided me from silence to voice, from invisibility to recognition. It reminded me that my power wasn't about punishment, revenge, or proving a point. It was about claiming my rightful space in the world and living fully in it. Evenings in the house became a mix of laughter, quiet reflection, and occasional tension, but never again the crushing weight of dismissal. I started hosting small dinners, not out of obligation but out of choice. Watching my family interact differently, seeing Emily grow into her own confidence, and observing my parents adjusting to boundaries they had once ignored, gave me a profound sense of fulfillment. Standing on the balcony one night, the skyline twinkling with 1,000 lights, I realized that this house, my house, was more than brick, mortar, and paint. It was a testament to resilience, independence, and the quiet victories that come from believing in yourself when no one else does. I let the wind brush against my face and whispered to myself, a soft vow that carried strength. I am seen. I am heard. I am mine. It was simple, yet absolute. A final acknowledgement of every struggle endured, every lesson learned, and every boundary set with love and clarity. I had claimed my life, my home, and my self-worth, and in doing so, I had rewritten the rules of my family, not with anger, but with grace. The house belonged to me, and so did the future.